Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. All right, everybody, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And we're here to move on to Tales of the Empire. Yes, we did Tales of the Jedi last week, or at least we concluded our Tales of the Jedi conversation with Ahsoka. And go check out that one with Jens of Chakchai Bankert, of course, if you haven't caught up on that conversation series yet. But of course, naturally, we're moving on into the Tales of the Empire series and starting off with the incredible episodes featuring Morgan Elsbeth, a character debuting in The Mandalorian and then heavily featured in Ahsoka, and now gets her own time in the sun, if you will, with a series of 3-episode vignettes on Tales of the Empire. And I think they're great. We have a guest back on the show, Ross Hollebon, very, very familiar around these parts here. You know him from Fantha Tracks as well as Album Cockpit Podcast, and golly gee, he's doing so many podcasts with his university right now. So very busy man, and we're glad to get him back on the show to chat about these important episodes to the story of Morgan Elsbeth, as we'll dive into. So this is typically where we do Cloud City Gossip. It's a quite light week, if you will, in terms of Star Wars news and content, particularly on the heels of Rebuild the Galaxy, Visions Volume 3 new trailer dropped a couple weeks ago. Mandalorian Grogu trailer also dropped kind of at the same time. So not a whole lot in terms of the news thing, but I did want to note that Star Wars Beyond Victory, a mixed reality playset, has now been released officially to the public. It introduces players to an original story that blends the thrilling world of pod racing, a stellar cast, powerful narrative, and mixed reality play. It's available now on the MetaQuest 3 and 3S. If you have that, I do not. But if you're a fan of that and some of the work that they've been doing on some of that mixed reality storytelling over the last couple of years, particularly Vader Immortal and Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, I think this might be up your alley then too. I remember they gave us a little bit of a tease of it at Star Wars Celebration. So go check that out if that's up your wheelhouse. And that it seems cool. I bet it's awesome and all that, but I'm not buying a MetaQuest, and unless I'm gifted one to kind of give a review for the game and whatnot, then I might just catch some clips online here and there. But all the power to you if that's your thing. Go enjoy it. Go have fun with it. It's a part of the Star Wars and Lucasfilm-adjacent galaxy, so it's really cool regardless. And with that, folks, that is all the news I had for this week. Let's get into our conversation with Ross on the other side of this break. Of course, it's a spoiler conversation. So if you haven't checked out Tales of the Empire at all, and even maybe Ahsoka or The Mandalorian, you're going to be in for a little bit of a going to be thrown for a loop here in this episode. So be wary of that. And if you want to continue the conversation with us, we can of course be found on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, YouTube. I think I said Facebook, but if not, Facebook as well. Really, any of the social media platforms. Search for Force Ghost Conversations. We'll be there, and we'd love to interact with you. We also have a Patreon site where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to Force Ghost Conversations related goodies. And we also have a TeePublic store where you can buy some Force Ghost related merchandise. And those are all in the episode description here. So make sure you go check those out if you want to support the podcast further. And without further ado, let's get to our conversation with Ross. Welcome to another iteration of Force Ghost Conversations, everybody. We talked about Tales of the Jedi last week, and as promised, we are now moving forward to the next phase of the Tales of series with Tales of the Empire. And to start off with those, we're going into the Morgan Elsbeth episodes, the first 3 of that batch, and they weren't like jumping around the timeline here with those. They went straight with one person and with the second batch with the other person in the Tales of the Empire series here. And thrilled to bring back returning guests to the show. Ross Hollebon, you know him from Fantha Tracks as a writer and just many other places online doing the podcast of stuff. He's telling me he's got like 4 podcasts going on at his his university he works at right now, so he's no stranger to the podcasting game right now. But Ross, thank you for joining us amidst the Capitals game right now. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Anthony. It's so fun to see you again. So like we
It's been
follow
a
each
while,
other
yeah.
so much through social media and messages here and there. So always fun to catch up a little bit, especially as the Eagles have primarily been doing well this season.
They have a lot of time yet to like fully figure things out, but I can't really complain about being 4-1 at this point. And could have really been 5-0 if some maybe I'm not going to blame the referees because don't put yourself in a position where you need to have a call go your way or the other way to determine a game. They had a 17-point lead, if I recall, or at least something to that degree, a 3-score lead, I think, and that should have been enough to keep the Broncos at bay, but momentum shifts and the game goes, and maybe you can't win them all, or you can win them all, but it's arguably better to have a loss at some point in your season, so you kind of like whip yourselves back into shape a little bit and go, all right, where do we need to fix things? I would argue that this loss is maybe okay because it got them out of some rhythm habits, and we'll see tomorrow, at the time of this recording, how it'll shake up. But I'm glad to hear that you've been checking in on the birds as the season's been going along here.
Yeah. I mean, anything that goes well with a cheesesteak and a beer, that's a good team to to cheer for, right?
That's right, and a winning team too at that. It's a lot easier, or at least competitive too. There's a lot of games out there that are like, I don't want to watch the Saints Panthers today. I don't make me do it, guys.
You're right.
When we have the YouTube TV for the NFL ticket, right? And they do like the 4 multi-screen, and it's like, okay, well, um, which games do I want on the screen that I think are going to be interesting? And there's a few that I'm like, I don't want them on the screen at all, even just to take up the space. If I can avoid that, I will I will do that. But there's the Eagles are certainly one of those that are a really competitive squad right now and defending champs too, as they should be. So awesome on that front there, and thrilled to have you back to chat about Morgan Elsbeth, and of course. A character that was introduced in The Mandalorian, but is really specifically tied to the Ahsoka of it all, and a character I know that's near and dear to your heart, and a show that you're also very familiar with. You remember you doing the week to weeks on Coffee with Kenobi for that, and
Yep.
when Morgan Elsbeth came up as like, okay, this is the next character to specifically focus on for Tales of the Empire, I'm like, got to go to Ross for this one. He's my first call, so thank you for hopping on here and for diving into this conversation here.
Yeah. And I think she is a great character, and what she has had to go through is very interesting. So I was very excited that she was part of this Tales of the Empire series, with her arc.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, me too. And I'll leave that in my first question here for you. As a fan of the Ahsoka series and the Mandalorian as well, where we were introduced to this character primarily, and now she's introduced more in this, or at least given the spotlight a bit more in this Tales of the Empire series, the continuation from the Tales of the Jedi that has now even gone to Tales of the Underworld, and who knows where we're going next with this kind of thing if they continue it. Um, what did you think of the character when Ahsoka first premiered, or even The Mandalorian too? Right, when you're first introduced to this character, what did you think of that character? And did you, at that time, let's say at the end of Ahsoka, before we even knew this was coming out, did you want to know more about that character's backstory? Because spoiler alert, people, if you didn't see Ahsoka, she kind of dies at the end of the first season. There in a climactic like battle to allow everyone to escape. At least when I say everyone, I mean like the Night Sisters and um, Thrawn's army going back to the galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, and does a Night Sister ever really die? I think that's
That's
another
also
thing that we
true.
will figure out as we get into Mandalorian and Grogu, or the next season of Ahsoka.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so all of that, I think she's a fascinating character, and as soon as she showed up, it was just like, oh, what's all this about? And
Hmm.
how it was put together. So even the set and where, her castle or fortress or whatever you want to, her interior area of it, I was just
Hmm.
like, oh, we have a Quentin Tarantino character in here who's just not cussing. and it is it
Yeah.
is just incredible talent and confidence and owning owning the space, but kind of taking everyone's breath away by how she owns
Mm,
it.
yeah,
I think she's fascinating and terrifying all at the same time.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden you know, you have a Beskar spear, and it's like, oh, where like where did she come from, and what is this
Mhm.
all about? So it was. uh, I'm already floored like that. I believe that's still when they were like first thing in the morning episodes.
It was.
So it's
Yep,
waking up before work and already floored because we're seeing Ahsoka in live action for the first time.
yep.
But then all of a sudden you meet this new villain and there's some heft to it. And then she starts fighting and I needed more and Tales of the Empire delivered.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I think so too. There is so much mysticism behind this character. Even from the first introduction with that Beskar spear, and she's able to hold her own for quite a little bit against Ahsoka in a battle, a lightsaber battle at that too. And we're like, this person's been trained by Anakin Skywalker and went through the Clone Wars and fought Darth Vader, and all the adventures that she's been through over the years. And then is this person randomly created out of nowhere is like goes against her and is able to hold her own, and you're like, wow, what's the deal here? And then of course the incredible line, where's Grand Admiral Thrawn, that kind of cuts to black after that.
Yeah.
um wow, like what an introduction, and the mysticism behind it all, of like, where does this character fit into this grand, now the world opens up when they say that line, right? Like, oh my gosh, we're not just like having this Mandalorian character and his little green buddy go off on these week to week adventures here. No, by saying that, now we're adding in all this lore from Rebels. We're adding in lore from the unknown regions. We're Ezra and Thrawn are out there in the at that point we had no idea they're out there somewhere in the galaxy, and then of course all of Ahsoka then is finding out how we get there and what also is behind all that. She's a Night Sister. There's this like grandmother group of Night Sisters still out there. This is the Night Sister planet. The Purgle are all tied to all this. Like, that's
Oh
just such
yeah.
a world building lore kind of thing that you're just like, where does this one character fit into this? How did this come to be? And this is kind of the answers that Tales of the Empire gives to us in the short format over the course of 3 episodes. And I think that um for the format this does, it really gives this character the shining light that they deserve, but also gives them the spotlight that doesn't have this big weight behind it, right? It's not like she got an
Mhm.
8 episode series, an hour long episode each, with the big marketing scheme behind it. It's just a nice to have for us hardcore fans that are like, oh, I want to know more about this character. On
Yeah.
May 4th, give me some fun tales and I'll watch them and dissect them. And that's what we all did. And I think that this was a great way to say, give us some more of this character and other characters too, this ilk, right? Dooku and Barasafi too, that are all in the same vein of this Tales of series. And it just fills in that gap that allows us to go, okay, here's more information as I rewatch Ahsoka or The Mandalorian, or even maybe Ahsoka season 2. Who knows? As you noted, is a Night Sister ever truly dead? Maybe she's not gone.
Yeah. They are we're going to learn. I'm so excited about learning more about the Night Sisters. So even
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
seeing her arc here, and we know it from the Ventress side of things. Um,
Exactly. Another
so
Night Sister.
so getting another vantage point was so valuable, and
Yeah,
like you said, it's just great teasing and great having the different vantage points to learn it from.
absolutely. Absolutely. And these episodes, so there are 3 of them that are specifically on Morgan Elsbeth, and they like the episode titles themselves are a play on like the fear, the anger and the hate moniker that Yoda says in episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Um what did you make of that as you're rewatching these episodes, or even when you watched them for the first time? What did you think? It's like the path of fear, the path of hate, the path of anger, are the specific episode titles. Did you have any thoughts about like that, or like is there a greater meaning or deeper meaning perhaps to that? I mean, maybe there is something to be said here, and I'm curious if you have anything on that.
So what I found to I obviously that stands out as soon as you're looking at the episodes and with everything being dropped at once, being able to see how that's structured.
Yeah.
You brought up the great point of the Phantom Menace and everything Star Wars and what those words mean.
Mhm.
I think what became especially interesting to me was after rewatching these 3, then I did watch Chapter 13, The Jedi,
Okay.
uh,
You went straight into
from The Mandalorian,
it.
so I went directly in because I was like, "Okay, they're burning the forest,"
Yep, and that's
and
why it's clouded in ash basically when we land there.
yeah, so that I found that interesting, but what really kind of clicked in the back of my head was and not that Morgan Elsbeth is a foil for Grogu,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like she chose her path with these things. And
Yeah.
during the Tale of the Jedi, Grogu tells Ahsoka what he's been through, and she's been able to see and communicate with him of what's happened.
Mhm.
And that's why she won't train him because she's afraid of what his power can do, similar to what happened with Anakin and his transformation to Darth Vader. So
Yeah.
I took it a little bit more of this is how she followed the path. Can Grogu follow the other, knowing that this is Filoni verse and he's
Mhm.
got his hands all over this. So maybe that's in the back of his head. Yeah, Morgan Elsbeth is the cautionary tale for Grogu in this, who doesn't know Darth
Mm.
Vader,
Mm.
um, or has been hidden from and hasn't been as engaged with. Maybe this is just a different way of looking at that, but the anger, the hate, um, she talks about it with Din Djarin. He's attached to you, and that is going to lead
Mhm.
to fear of losing you, and we know what fear eventually turns into.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I thought that was an interesting way to look at this, and just kind of gleaning that from that live action episode based off of watching these 3 animated episodes.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think that as time has gone on and we've gotten more understanding of these stories beyond too, right? I think it's this Ahsoka Sabine thing too of like, oh, I couldn't really train her in the way that I wanted to as so also that's kind of factoring into the matter of like, oh, I can't
Yeah,
train Grogu. There's too much fear on her end of like, oh, what could he become? What could he do? He has too much of this and that and whatnot. And that leads to the problematic nature that happens in Ahsoka too, where she's kind of just stagnating from point A to point B and not fully buying into either herself or training Sabine or going to save Ezra, right? It's just kind of piecemeal until she fully commits to that after that incredible sequence with Anakin in the world between worlds. Or was it all just a dream? Who knows?
right. And
Um,
that's what we'll keep seeing as more things unfold. Like, you
absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
bring us that onion of the next feature film, or at least the next
Yeah. But
feature
yeah.
or the feature film with Mando and Grogu.
Yep. Yep. Give us those tea leaves of the next one, right? Um, and also I think too, like these episodes overall as like a package, right? Um, from what I understand, right, we're starting off with just like more kid Morgan Elsbeth. I don't know what age we would necessarily say, but, it's just another example of how someone falls into the paths of, like, evil and choosing to be evil and the powerlessness, right? Because that's where it really breeds from is, like, losing her entire family and that loss and the fear that comes from this, like, mechanized monster destroying your entire community and people and
Yeah,
your way of life, and you're, like, the lone survivor yet, and now you're like an outsider everywhere you go. It doesn't matter where you're at. You always feel like different and otherized, right? You don't really feel a sense of community anywhere aside from Thrawn basically being like, "Hey, you have value."
yeah.
um,
I like your ship
that's
blueprints. Let's talk.
yeah, exactly, right? He's like, "Oh, I see something interesting here. I'm gonna, it's very much similar to like the Anakin Palpatine of it all, where it's like, okay, Anakin feels outside of the Jedi Order, and even Obi-Wan, that's like supposed to be his mentor, is kind of a reluctant teacher at various points. And then Palpatine's that father figure that he really needed, where he's like, "Oh, Anakin, tell me your woes and what you did to the Sand People, and it wasn't your fault," and all that stuff to seduce him to ultimately lead to his choice to join the dark side. And that's kind of in a different way what we see here with the Morgan Elsbeth's journey here. So it's also Star Wars pointing out that it's like, hey, this would the framework that George provided here, the fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, doesn't just apply to the one instance that you see in Star Wars. It can here's another example that showcases how this can happen for a person that's not necessarily tied into the grand scheme of the Skywalker opera, space opera saga of it all. That isn't like the the ultimate chosen one figure. This is just yeah, obviously the Night Sisters have magic, but she's just one of many, and she's not like the most special night, mother Night Sister and all that stuff. She's just another kid that was there that just happened to survive, and here's her tale of how she comes into power and strips people of their free will and dignity because of that.
Yeah.
So speaking of that first episode, it brings into live action or animation. I'll combine that into two. The canon of that story, if someone doesn't read the books or comics or anything beyond that, a story that is pulled from the comics that was a Dark Horse 5-issue line, I believe, in like 2012 when they canceled Clone Wars. Then they released this 5-issue arc. They did the season 6 for the Clone Wars, and then they also released the book Dark Disciples. So a couple of those ancillary Clone Wars stories that never officially made it to Cartoon Network air screens at that time. Uh, and that being the story that is being told there is Grievous basically wiping out the Night Sisters, and then there's a whole thing with Maul. Then that's basically how Maul ends up on Mandalore that we see in season 7. Then later on, um, so we see these events, particularly from Morgan's perspective. And do you think, just as you watch this a couple times now and knowing the character's history now, do you think that this instance serves as a solid origin story for her, like that basis of like, okay, here's a seminal threshold moment that then leads her to do everything beyond this?
Yeah, I think it's trauma and loss,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
how do I recover from this? And her feeling of helplessness, because
Yes.
she's
Yes.
incredibly brave and wants to help her mother and wants to, you know, as her mom is fighting one on one with Grievous and kind of
Yes.
giving him a fight for a moment. He
Right.
he turns it on, um, and she has to watch the whole thing. So not
Mm-hmm.
only is she watching her entire clan be decimated, she watches the moment that her mother is murdered, and
Yeah.
you know. Uh, Going through that level of trauma and how do you recover from that, and then she's immediately brought into a new group, and the mountain clan brings her in. We're going to take care of you, um, but she can't quite let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I'm not faulting her at all. um, that's it would have been nice, and she could have lived a probably a much nicer life if she did just say, okay, this is comfortable, but that fear was planted. And
Yeah.
now she has these people that are taking care of her, and I need to teach them to protect themselves,
Yeah.
not knowing their ways. So trying to force her thoughts based off of only her experience, because she's so young as she's forced into that. She
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have the experience that the elder from the mountain clan eventually shares with her at the end, as she's banished from their group as well, uh, because she has led to another battle. Um, I think it's a fantastic way
I agree.
to take advantage of established storylines and to factor another person in that is integral to other storytelling components that Filoni has embedded in all of this that you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right. You know, the trauma and the feeling of helplessness, like, that turns her into arguably a crueler person, a more world hardened from the start, right? She's like, "My innocence was ripped from me right now, and my everything that I knew, there's a before and an after, and, like, I'm the only one left," and, I think she's making a strong, solid point to the people of the Mountain Clan where she's like, "It happened to us, it can happen to you guys too. What are you doing to prepare yourself?" And, there's an argument to be made on both sides where it's like, "Hey, we're not messing around with anybody here, like, we're not involved, like, they're probably not gonna come for us." But then there's the argument of like, well, it's the Empire. They're coming for all of us eventually. If you're not preparing yourself, you're dooming yourself. So it's finding
Yep.
that interesting balance. So maybe it's not necessarily what that sage mother of the Mountain Clan is, asking everyone to not do versus what Morgan Elsbeth's like, hey, you need to strike first. Otherwise, the they're coming for you, right? There's probably somewhere in the balance of the middle there that's the reality of what you should be doing in that instance. But I think this is a really great thing too, also. And as you were talking there, I was thinking like about the origin stories and whatnot, and basically, it's kind of like not every person, every superhero, right, that sees like their parents murdered or engages in this sees an act of trauma, right, that is their origin story. Not all of them choose to be good superheroes, good heroes, even not even just superheroes, not even choose to be good heroes after that, take on the mantle. And this is an example of a person that arguably we would say is more leaning towards the dark side of
Hmm.
feelings and choices because of their experiences, right? They're not saying like, "Oh, I'm looking for greater understanding and meaning and feeling, and trying to do good out in the world." No, they're like, "I need to protect everything that I have and surround it with a hardened fist and defense because an invader is going to come eventually, and I need to be at the forefront leading that and making sure that everyone is safe. If I can't protect everybody, then no one can protect everybody." And that's kind of what that sets up to be. And that's really the arc of Morgan right there. It's this
There she is.
hardline person. That's right. That's her in a nutshell right there, right? I need to, and that's the drive of like, hey, I'm hearing these visions now of they hint at that towards the later episodes, I think, where she's like, I'm hearing visions of like something beyond, right? Kind of teasing that Ahsoka storyline where she's recognizing that the grandmother, I guess, is calling to her, or whatnot. And they're having this connection that then leads to the going out to Thrawn out there. So it's like laying these these seedlings for the foundation of this thing that's going to come later. So props to Filoni for not only creating the lore behind this all, but really diving into the character of it and making this solid foundation by which to make it all work in a through line. So the second episode then features her introduction with Grand Admiral Thrawn. We also get a little bit of a Rook sequence in this too, and I think Captain Pelion too. So a little bit of like all the outsiders popping in here too from Mandalorian things and Rebels things and whatnot. Um, why do you think that they were good allies for each other? That being Morgan Elsbeth and Grand Admiral Thrawn.
I think Thrawn, uh, with everything that he does strategically, who can I trust who's going to be my person, knowing and he straight up asks her, he doesn't even try to manipulate it in any other way.
Hmm.
Why do you want to do this?
Yeah,
And her answer is revenge. And he's like, okay, I know what makes you tick,
it's all I need.
and I can now utilize that. And
Yeah.
all I needed to do is provide you with X, Y, and Z, and then you'll help me with the things that I need that we don't get through this trio of episodes so much as we come to understand in Ahsoka
Hmm.
later of, hey, here's where this was actually going, um after building from what happened in the Mandalorian. So
Yeah.
I think that is a super cool way of it. And then just, you know, knowing how well these three fed into the 13th chapter, the Jedi, and she's already met Thrawn. So there isn't
Hmm.
that, you know, it's not that gasp moment that I know that I had when Ahsoka had the lightsaber
Yeah.
to her throat. and I've already just been like, "This has been one of the greatest episodes ever," and then it's all of a sudden, "Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?" And at that point, I'm just, like, probably falling over the table like Chris Farley
Yep,
on a Saturday
spitting out
Night
your
Live
breakfast.
skit. Yeah. Um, so getting those elements, getting Thrawn factored in, having the stages of it with Pelion asking aboard the ship and then Rook
Mhm.
coming and them having a very good fight together, and Rook was not happy after that. Um, and Pelion being right there again saying, "Hey, you know what? This'll be good," and then Thrawn popping up. So it is just like it, it's almost like a little bit of his own magic
Mhm.
being able to show up and throw wave after wave at her to test her and make sure that she is the right one to come into his fold, because he's very selective about that.
Very much so. And she passes his tests, so I think that's a big, like, he's very much like a, "I only want the best of the best with me." But he's also an outsider from what we know of, like, the expanded lore of Thrawn, right? The Empire, if anyone's, like, paid attention, doesn't necessarily have a lot of, like, um, a alien species at all or creatures in their ranks, right? It's very much, predominantly a white male kind of people that are in positions of power with them, and that's um I think a big point of the Empire. So he stands out amongst all of them, and has and faces some of that kind of discrimination too amongst the ranks of the Empire. So as he's building his crew, he needs some of the most loyal people at all disposal that are willing to do anything and everything for them. And it seems like, based off of what we understand from Ahsoka, right, that she becomes like his project manager of many ways, right, where she's like the one in the Corellian factories, getting everybody up and running and making sure that these star destroyers and what other tie defenders and whatever projects that they've been working on are being put into production and meeting deadlines and getting all that up and running. Like, she's been the one doing that, and even as he's out in the grand nether space of the unknown regions, right, that loyalty still lingers as she never wavered, and maybe those dreams come into play there where she's like, "Hey, I know he's out there. I've been communicating with these people. I can't fully explain it, but you got to trust me here."
Yep.
And through all that rank and discipline that she's created over the years, those people that still support and work for her, um, they all just kept in line and kept moving, and that's how we lead to the events of the definitely episode 5 and 6 of Ahsoka, where we're off and running towards unknown planet out there in the unknown regions.
Yeah, and I think just learning, getting that additional insight in these episodes about the massive role she played in the construction of the entire Imperial Navy. You
Yeah,
know, it wasn't like she didn't just have that blueprint. That was to show,
exactly.
hey, she knows the engineering component. She knows, uh, and they kind of laugh her off when it's just like, yeah, but this will be safer for your pilots, and they're like, we don't care about our
Yeah,
pilots. Like
we don't care. Well,
they
they'll
they can
we'll
die.
get
We need
another
it to be
person.
cheaper.
That's right.
Um, but her know-how with that, like, and as you mentioned, um, it's project manager, but it's almost COO style. Like, she is
Exactly. Even
that
above
chief
that, yeah.
operations officer making all of this happen, and the extensions that keep going on, and that loyalty that she built out of people as well. And we don't know, there has to be some form of her doing it through fear and intimidation, because that's what we've
Right.
learned about her through the other steps as well. Um, so especially once we get to Ahsoka, she's ruthless, and she's had
Exactly.
everything ripped from her, so she feels the world owes her things, and she's going to take it.
Mhm.
Um, it pretty much answering to one person, and that's because he's promised her the chance at revenge of some
Mhm.
nature. Um,
Yeah.
so again, just uh, for someone to get introduced so late, but to touch so many different areas, was just a brilliant addition.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost make the argument, like, you really can't watch the original trilogy anymore in the same way, or Rebels or or Rogue One, right? without knowing that, like, wow, these ships that and star destroyers and just almost everything was probably touched or influenced at some point by the work of Morgan Elsbeth, which is an
Mhm.
astounding thing when you just kind of created this character out of thin air for the Mandalorian, and then you're able to find, like, okay, here are the ways that they can be puzzled into the grand pieces of the entirety of the Star Wars saga and have it be meaningful. And I think this is a really great way of how they've worked that all out.
Yeah, and being a force sensitive witch of Dathomir,
That's right.
and that's the
Yeah,
one doing it. It's just like, oh yeah, here, yeah, this is
it's all
who's
connected.
running our operation.
That's right, right? Also a big reveal too, right? Because there was speculation, like, "Oh, could she be? Could she not be?" And then pretty early on in Ahsoka, they're like, "Yes, I was a Night Sister of Dathomir, and survived the Purge or whatnot." You're right. I need to rewatch to get the full quote, but just so much lore in just a few seconds of this character, and then just the more that she talks, the more that we understand and know about these people. That we're like, "Wow, wow, what an interesting, you know, what could be a hokey concept introduced in the Clone Wars, right? A show on Cartoon Network, a Saturday morning serial. That there's like, hey, what if we have like witches in Star Wars? What do you think about that? And George is like, yep. I mean, maybe it was a George Lucas concoction or whatnot, or I don't know exact etymology of it all. Or was it Dave and crew that were like, hey, let's introduce this here and see where it goes, to then lead to this, and then the more character development and how we're able to use it as a through line for, okay, this mirrors Anakin's tale in a different way. How can we show how people theoretically that start off as good people can really become bad fascist overlords? is,
Yeah,
is is really astounding, and quick how quickly they do that too, right? In like these 10-minute interludes of that are to the point and right across. It's really powerful. Um, and speaking of the interconnectivity of all, the final episode ultimately is that, as you noted, that last connection to literally the opening events of Ahsoka. In Ahsoka's introduction, chapter 13, the Jedi for the Mandalorian season 2. What insights do you think that this episode provides that we can ultimately take into that experience? You've already hinted at a few of them, but are there any others that you wanted to highlight um, before we move on?
um, I mean, I think it is just it sets up the intrigue. It sets up here's evil that's happening. You know, we've got Ahsoka who
Hmm.
isn't a
Hmm.
Jedi. And she's there with her white saber. She is um uh, again, I know some people hate this terminology. She is that gray Jedi. She
Hmm.
is that in between, but she's getting to show I'm still here to do the right thing. And here is someone of evil who is, you know, putting her thumb down on this village. Um, you know, coming it within Caladan, and she's the magistrate, and you know, she was an outsider who they welcomed in, and you know, she played them and got
Yeah.
what she wanted. And yes, now you all just work for me, and it's going to be night and day because I have to build this fleet. So I think just setting it up so Ahsoka is an even greater hero,
Hmm.
um, and shows how aligned she is, um, I think as well with just any resources, any studying, any spy networks. She understands what's happening there and has a
Right.
lot of, she's not surprised by anything when she gets there. She's like,
Hmm.
this is who this is. Um, and I need to take her out, but I need
Yeah.
to get the information that I need first and
Gotta get
foremost.
some info.
Yeah.
She's smart. She knows that this person was connected, and there's a chance that, she says in the wonderful trailer, right? There's been rumblings of something out there, and I think that's been the hunt for her over the last couple of years after escaping her kind of purgatory on Malachor. Um, was to like find out more because right that was the Ezra thing. You got to find me. Um, kind of thing, right? So like, okay, gotta track. I know he's with Thrawn, so if I find Thrawn, theoretically, I find Ezra. So that's kind of the little bit of a mission that she's been on the last while here. So any lead we can take, we'll do it there. And the great connection with Bo-Katan, kind of being on the comm line there. And I also like too that it sets up Ahsoka as this, like you said, this kind of gray figure, this Ronin out there, where she's not tied into the dogmatics of whatever the Jedi are at this time, right? Luke's trying to create his new temple and started that up, and I assume it's really connected, probably in a similar way to the old Republic of the the Jedi from Anakin and Obi-Wan's period, right, where it's kind of intertwined with the Senate and whatever the new Jedi or the New Republic's trying to do. Um, where this is like a person that can go anywhere if they feel like, "Hey, these people need help. I don't need to go through like the procedure of like, okay, we need to put in a request or they're requesting us to go someplace," right? That those things that can take time. And these people seem like they are desperately in need of help. They've been under the siege from Morgan Elsbeth for many a year, post the Galactic Civil War, pre-Galactic Civil War. They've just been under this terrible regime, and restrictive, of course. And I liked all the setup here, and I'm glad you watched it because I'm like, man, if I had the time, I'm going straight into uh, the episode here because it is a wonderful, like, okay, it just begs to be watched next. I'm surprised that like Disney Plus doesn't automatically, like when the episode ends, be like, hey, now you should watch this one to
Uh,
keep the
it
story going.
if
It would
they
be
incorporated a choose your path
yeah,
way to
right.
watch, and
Hey, you
whether
want
that
more
is,
Morgan Elsbeth? Let's go.
yeah, oh, and here's the Clone Wars episode, and here's the, yeah, all of these element, like, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
And I
and
have to say, during my answer where I was going slower and stuff, I was
mhm,
fighting for a word that I was like, I know this, why isn't this popping up?" It was seeing Ahsoka in so much control and understanding of her surroundings and elements because she had been Fulcrum. And
yes.
that is the network she was tied into, and Fulcrum just wasn't popping into my head, and it was driving me nuts. So that's where my answer went a little long because I kept waiting for it to show up, and it didn't until you were talking.
All good, all good. Yeah, she was incredible as Fulcrum and really integral to that early and through all the way to the as the rebellion grew and became what it was, that we see in Rogue One. Really incredible, and Ahsoka is a part of that, but unfortunately also Morgan Elsbeth is very critical to the story of the Empire, here, past, and in the future. It looks like too, as Thrawn is now back at Dathomir, seemingly, and in the old new galaxy. I don't even know what we're calling these things nowadays. In the Star Wars main saga galaxy, let's call it. And who knows where we're going next with Ahsoka season 2, Mandalorian and Grogu, the combined film that's going to be in a few years, the climactic film that Filoni's doing. Who knows? But I'm ready for it, and these episodes only make me more excited for that because now I just have greater clarity and insight into Morgan Elsbeth and how it ties into the grander story of it all. Now, here's the thing. So we have 3 of these now Tales of series. We had Tales of the Jedi, we had Tales of the Empire, we had Tales of the Underworld that came out this past May. Um, if there are future iterations of the quote unquote Tales of series, which character would you like to see featured and why?
So I'm going to give two here.
Okay, lay it on
Um,
me.
the first would be, what elements would they take out of the book that I think is amazing
Mhm.
in kind of the origin story of Tarkin.
Okay.
So
Ooh. You want more Tarkin. Okay.
James Lucerno. I apologies, I don't remember off the top of my
I
head.
think it's Lucino.
Uh,
Lucino. Yep.
Lucino as the author, but it's just like reading that just made Tarkin so much more incredible. And it'd be interesting to see how they would put. I would hope it would be more than 3 episodes,
Mhm.
just because that storytelling is so rich and his background is so amazing that I think making that available to a larger audience, because I think if you've watched the original trilogy, you know who Tarkin is, and you know he's one of the bad. Like
That's right.
that's one of the normies that Vader would actually listen to. Um,
Yeah.
so he has that gravitas and that intensity. So I would love to see how that is told in this animated style.
Mhm.
So that's one, and that's from the book style, and knowing that we love reading the novels and getting into those
Right.
things.
Give
Um,
him all 6
and
episodes, Tales of the Tarkin.
yeah, yeah, Tales of Tarkin, like, bring it. And then the other one where I think it's just a character that since the first moment I saw her on screen, I was just like, "Well, how do I get to know everything about her?" And there isn't much at all, is Maz Kanata.
Mm, I love it.
Um, because I mean, she's not a quote unquote good guy. Like, she's a smuggler.
She's a
She
smuggler,
runs
she's
a
a pirate.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is all these things, but she does have something to do with the Force. She does
Mhm.
get it. She has used that to her. She didn't do it as a Jedi, so she didn't have to stick to a code or anything, but she gets it. Um, and I think they just
She's been
set it
around
up
for a while too, like, she could have
right,
year
and she knows everyone.
4 of these, right, of 3-episode arcs throughout the course of her life,
Yeah.
and you'd
Well,
never
and
get
then
bored of it.
you could mix in even a subset with the Master Codebreaker.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So
Give
she's
Justin Theroux a little more screen time.
yeah. So it's just like those two paired together, but primarily with Maz and maybe a sidebar of the Master Codebreaker, I think would be pretty fascinating.
Well, it'd be interesting because she's also in, like, in the midst of, like, that civil war on and that's why she can't participate in the events
Yeah.
of episode 8. So,
Yeah.
like,
She's got
what's going on
her
concurrently?
jetpack on and she's shooting people while
Yeah.
having a like it it's like those commercials where I don't know, I think there's one where the woman's on the lanai talking and saying, "Oh, the squirrels are back," and talking to
Yep, yep,
it is funny that she's just so matter of fact of it, but that means she's been through and seen everything and she doesn't get
absolutely.
rattled.
That would be such a blast, both of those. I'm really for all of that because with these, they've really taken them out of the like, hit them out of the park for a sports reference there, and they've really just like done excellent jobs with these little short vignettes into these characters and just learning more about their backstories and who they are in these little instances that really fill in these great gaps between their stories from the larger grand sagas that we know and love them from. So I think that would just be a brilliant way to you learn more about Tarkin, a guy that's the big one of the big bads of the entirety of this whole thing, and Maz Kanata, the kind of like that space pirate that holds everything together, at least in the Force Awakens. That's a very much a character that has stolen a lot of people's hearts over time, and her introduction to Rey is just really heartwarming. So give me more. She's had some a run in the comics a little bit here of late, in those High Republic stories, especially the Dark Horse ones. But hey, more Maz can never hurt. Um, if I'm throwing my hat in the ring here too with another suggestion, I'm throwing good old Stinky Rod of the Hut into this, especially now knowing that the character's coming back for the Mandalorian and Grogu. What have they been doing since Clone Wars? What was life like with Dad, and what was like without Dad? Where were they during Return of the Jedi? What's the Hutt clans doing? Tales of the Huts. Let's go.
Well,
That's my
and
suggestion.
what are the galactic gems like that obviously
Yeah,
he's been spending
yeah.
time in and
What's the workout regimen?
is there a is there a space version of Balco or anything like that? Is he that big
Oh
naturally
yeah,
or are
that'd
there
be cool.
supplements involved or anything? So it is
Mm.
no, I like that call. And and if it's Jeremy Allen White voicing it, all the better.
All the better too, right? Ultimately, I think this shows that there's a fervor and an interest from fans to keep this series going. And let's every May 4th, let's run it back. Let's do something new and have something fun and interesting out there as time goes on. Um, I do hope that maybe with next this May 4th shouldn't be as packed as last year's. Poor Tales of the Underworld, man. I
Buried.
everything just came out at once, right?
Yeah.
Buried between I mean, everything was buried at that time, right? It was Star Wars Celebration, Andor season 2, Light and Magic season 2, Tales of the Underworld, Revenge of the Sith re-release, High Republic books coming out at the same time. I think some new DLC for Star Wars Outlaw, like all of that just gets lost in the sauce when it all comes out at the same time. So
Yep.
like Lucasfilm, space it out a little bit, please, for all of us.
Yes.
We want to enjoy it. We want to buy it all. We want to talk about it, but we can't.
Yeah, I don't
You just physically can't.
I wasn't unpacked from Japan yet.
That's
It
right.
was kind
You
of
were
like, "Hey."
we had many people on the show that were coming back from we talked to them and when they came back from Tokyo and they were like I landed and pretty much went home, went to bed and woke up, went straight to the theater to watch Revenge of the Sith because
Yes.
like it was in for like one more day before it was out of theaters and we weren't missing that and they're just falling asleep in their chairs. They're watching this
It's
movie on
real.
the screen. I was like, "Man, talk about like, it's a good problem to have, but, like, it didn't need to be this way."
Yeah.
Space it out, space it out. Thankfully, they did that with Rebuild the Galaxy, that came out a few weeks ago. Visions Volume 3 is coming out at the end of October, and
So
then
excited.
seemingly, we're having a little bit of a breather until, May. As far as I know, nothing new is really coming out in the larger scheme of things. Maybe an Ahsoka tease here and there, more trailers for Mandalorian and Grogu um, or maybe some more teases for the mall show coming too. But whew, yeah, it's nice
Yeah.
to have a breather and talk about some of these things that have been kind of on the docket for a while. And Ross, thank you for coming on the show to talk about the Morgan Elsbeth episodes of Tales of the Empire. It was an absolute blast. And where can the folks find you online and around the fun places if they want to continue the conversation or find out some of the cool things that you're doing?
Yeah, so thank you, Anthony. It's always fun, when you reached out. I says, "Oh, awesome. We haven't touched base for a little bit." So this was, again, fantastic, and thank you. Um, if you're looking to change gears at all and wanna find out what's happening at Butler University, go to Spotify, check out the CCOM podcast, and there are multiple shows under that moniker. I host a couple of them, I produce the
Mhm.
others. And then there's also JCA First Fridays. And we talk about the Jordan College of the Arts at Butler University with our top 5 ballet program, our theater
Wow.
program, music, all these things that I'm very fortunate to be involved in and be around people that are so passionate. And then especially students who are, the future leaders that will be out there doing these things. And especially as I work with music, I can't I don't do anything there without thinking about Ludwig Göransson and what he has brought in. And you've got Kiner, you've got Williams, you've got all of this and what music means to the theater of
Mhm.
Star Wars. So it lets me, I think, enjoy my fandom to an even deeper level,
Yeah.
getting to understand some of the music theory behind it, some of the approaches. So I learned through all these episodes as well, which I love being just the voice. It's like, hey, how do we get from A to B to C? And I'm going to soak in everything that you're telling me as we get there. Um, so that's it from like a day to day. Fantha Tracks. I Mark, I need to write some more for you. And you're probably nodding, say, yeah, you do. What are you doing? Um, so hopefully that gets worked in a little bit as well. Have been on Rebel Base Card somewhat recently, Podcast
Mhm.
Stardust, uh, Coffee with Kenobi, talking the final 2 episodes of Andor there. Um, so yeah, it is. uh, I don't think there's ever been a time where someone's like, "Hey, do you want to come on and talk Star Wars?" Where I'm just like, "Oh, you know what? I'm busy." Like
I'm
you
good.
you talk
Yeah.
Star Wars and then you figure out everything else. So
Yep, and
again,
there's
thank
always a
you,
new angle.
Anthony. Yeah, and great job as always. Like you do fantastic. I love the discussions amongst our friends when they're like, "Oh yeah, Anthony had this person on. They're talking about this." It's great to be a part of the community that we're a part of.
It really is, and it's been a blast having you on, Ross. And of course, I've checked out all of your appearances on other shows recently too, and I was like super jealous. So like, I got to get Ross back on somehow in some way. So you're never too far away from the show. Your name goes right back on the whiteboard list as soon as you do an episode. I'm like, I gotta get Ross back on here as soon as possible. So you'll look out for an Instagram chat here in the future. But
And is it the
folks,
regular name or the, Quinlan Ross screen name that I'm starting to use more and more?
You might always be Quinlan Ross in my book from now on. I don't know if I'll ever just refer to you as regular Ross. It might just be Quinlan from now on. You may not even become Ross. You might.
Quinlan. Yeah, all of a sudden people are like, how did your nickname become Q?" Like, yeah, it's a long
Yep.
story.
Yeah. Don't ask. It's quite a journey. Watch Star Wars and you'll find out, and get really in the nitty gritty of it all. Watch Clone Wars, and then watch this one character that has like a quick 1 second sequence in the Phantom Menace, and if you blink, it's gone. But one guy led to a whole new array of fan stories and speculation that then led to Clone Wars and beyond, and Dark Disciple and whatnot. So, anywho, folks, we're digressing here. Thank you for listening to this episode of Force Ghost Conversation. We'll be back in your feeds next week with, you guessed it, the Barasafi episodes for Tales of the Empire. So we're continuing this journey here and tackling this Tales of the Empire series as we are going along here. Then, but until then, may the Force be with you, and take care.